When I say we're excited for this next segment, we are so excited. We've been looking forward to this pretty much since we came up with the idea while we were actually at the Women's March. Virginia and I took pictures of really the craziest signs. And I don't even know if I could even say these are the craziest. These are the craziest that Virginia and I actually saw. We took every one of these pictures, but we have a very special guest in studio kind of to help us break down these signs.
That's right. So many of these signs make outlandish claims. So we were like, let's bring in a legal expert, our good friend, Sarah Parshall Perry from the Heritage Foundation, who just so happens to have been last week's Pro-Medical Woman of the Week.
Thank you. An honor I hold very dear to my heart.
You should have a crown on your head, honestly. Right now.
Where is my crown?
Where is your crown? We'll work on that.
Yeah.
But we wanted to get your honest reaction, Sarah, on these signs, both as a strong pro-medical woman, but also as a professional legal mind. What are your thoughts on these claims that the very pro-abortion movement is making about what is going to happen post-Roe? So let's go ahead and roll some of these. So the first sign we have up here, and we do want to note that for everyone listening, we're going to be reading the signs, but you can also watch this full segment on YouTube. So if you want to see the signs as we're talking, just go to YouTube, the Daily Signal YouTube channel. This will be one of the latest videos up.
But if you're on YouTube and you don't want to see the signs, please keep watching.
And you can also check out, we're going to have all these pictures posted too on the Pro-Medical Women Instagram account, so you can also just scroll through and see them there. But all right, so this first one says, pro-life, ? Then put down your guns. Sarah, you went to law school. You studied the Second Amendment.
Yep.
What do you think about this argument?
Well, first of all, it's a very popular one right now because it's been making the rounds on some of the late night talk shows like Trevor Noah's show, in which he pointed out the hypocrisy of the pro-life movement. And I will say that the attempt to take an innocent life is not the same as a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, which the Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld. And abortion, as Alito said in the draft opinion, is inherently different. You are taking a life. You are choosing to take a life. Whereas in the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, you are in lawful possession of your constitutional right, which is represented by your ownership of a duly registered gun. They are totally mutually exclusive.
And guns in the right hands keep people safer.
Yes, they do. And we have a defensive gun use database that my colleague in the Meese Legal Center actually runs. And we encourage you to check it out because it's amazing. But it is truly, this is one of the more ridiculous claims that I've seen, that you can equate somehow a constitutional Second Amendment right with your desire to kill an unborn human being. Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
All right, next sign. The Taliban stands with Alito and the gang.
Sorry.
And too, if you can, it's kind of like an old weird guy too holding it.
Okay.
And we want to preface, Sarah has not seen any of these signs.
I have not.
Yeah.
I have not seen them.
You're getting her live reaction here.
Okay, first of all, props for the rhyming meter in this actual picture. Once again, this is sort of a pithy and memorable but totally inaccurate representation. So the Taliban obviously is a religious order, the cult that is obviously interested in sort of diminishing and destroying the rights of individuals that don't align with its perspective on things. But to say it stands with Alito and the gang, I find absolutely hysterical because, for example, that would assume that the Taliban is pro-states' rights, that the Taliban is pro-constitution, that the Taliban is pro-separation of powers, and the Taliban is in the interest of protecting unborn human life, when in fact they're nothing of the sort. No. They are interested in destroying life, not in protecting life. So there's my response.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, let's go for the next one. All right, this episode of Handmaid's Tale sucks. We've seen a lot of Handmaid's Tale signs recently.
Handmaid's Tale signs, costumes.
Oh, my gosh. And it's getting tired. It's like I've seen enough red robes and white hats. I've seen it. We've done this before. This is tired. I'm going to give this one a C- for originality. Okay, we've seen it before. Handmaid's Tale, obviously a reference to the book by Margaret Atwood. Okay, yes, forced pregnancy. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. And look, we're living in some kind of totalitarian regime. Once again, this is completely different. We are not using Americans as human breeders, which is the concept behind the Handmaid's Tale. Otherwise, it would be exceptionally weird. We're not living in some weird dystopian alternate universe. Actually, we are trying to utilize our brains to find whether or not the Constitution said anything about abortion, and it clearly does not. In 1977, there were years of commentary and critique after the 73 Roe versus Wade decision in which people fessed up to the fact that it was kind of a really garbage constitutional law case. And they plucked a right to abortion out of thin air. So, yes, okay, we've seen the Handmaid's Tale sign, C-. Been there, done that, yes.
And they didn't even, do a good job in the design of it. Their socks is in a weird place.
They ran into a Michael's, grabbed a Sharpie and a piece of poster board and went, I'm going to a protest.
All right, next one. Don't want me outside your house, then stay the HE double hockey sticks out of my doctor's office.
Okay. Also, small and weirdly plasticky.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the situation is on the
because
design.
It was raining,
okay.
so
Well, it also looks like a dry erase board.
Oh, it does.
It might have been.
So they could just sort of up the rhetoric, the more angry they got. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, let me say something about the protests at the justices' houses. The U.S. Criminal Code, 18 U.S.C. Section 1507 is being repeatedly violated, which actually prohibits any protesting or any demonstrations outside the home of a sitting federal judicial officer. Okay, so number one, it's criminal. Number two, they aren't involved in a doctor's office at all. They are doing nothing with a doctor's office. In fact, they are telling the states you can regulate the way you see fit. And if you don't like the fact that your doctor won't perform an abortion, then go debate on the floor of your state houses and elect somebody who represents your interest. Have those conversations there. Don't have them at the federal level.
Yep. The moment Roe v. Wade's overturned, it goes back to the states.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, next sign. Oh, this one was wild to see. So this is a pregnant woman. On her stomach, she has written "no forced pregnancy," and then she's holding a sign saying, "Your guns have more rights than my picture of a uterus."
Okay. So we've discussed the whole Second Amendment fallacy in relationship to the right to unborn life. She's got "no forced pregnancy" written over her stomach, which is sending a confusing message because was that a forced pregnancy? I mean, who knows? I can't tell what she's trying to say because she's very clearly 7, 8, maybe even 9 months pregnant. So I'm going to give them like a D+ for message continuity, okay? And also a D for lack of message originality. Again, we've seen the Second Amendment sign before. This is not forced pregnancy. I would like to clarify that for everybody. With family medical leave, safe access to contraception, flexibility in work schedules, this is a detriment that even the Supreme Court justices during oral arguments said it's not really the detriment that Justice Blackmun was writing about in 1973, because there's no detriment. People are waiting to adopt. People are waiting to provide charitable services. Your inconvenience at having to, suffer the consequences of the choices that you make is a very temporary balance against the right of an individual who's not yet born to actually come into the world. So it's not forced pregnancy.
All right, next one. Abortion is pro-life.
Pro what kind of life? I would say pro murderous life.
Up is down. You know.
Pro morally reprobate life. I'm not even sure what the rationale is behind this. I feel like this one needs an explainer, so I'm going to give that one a D- because it's totally unclear how this conclusion is even supported by the left, how they can make that argument with a straight face. How is it pro-life?
Seems like very like Orwellian, like, freedom is slavery, abortion is pro-life.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then again, we're living in the moral upside down. So it's kind of like, well, sure, of course they're going to argue that abortion is pro-life, because why wouldn't we? I mean,
it sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good. That's exactly it.
Sense. Yeah.
So it's pro your non-inconvenienced life, I guess.
Yeah. All right.
I like we're in the moral upside down. I almost wanted to call this segment that.
Moral upside down.
All right, next one is for the moral upside down.
All right. Prosecute masturbators. Sperm equals baby.
I did warn Sarah.
I'm going to tell you, I just snorted, first of all. Second of all, I have teenage boys, and if that's the case, I would have a lot of little babies around my house. Listen, this is ridiculous, okay? We know life begins at conception. The science on it is overwhelming. I won't bore the audience with it, but it is very clear that a fertilized egg is a human being. It has all the physiological material there, all the DNA, all the chromosomal material. It's there. It just has to get older. Sperm are not babies.
Nope.
That would mean men would be pregnant constantly. And in fact,
men can't get pregnant, Sarah?
No, they cannot, despite what you might hear from some of the gender ideologues on the fact that men can get pregnant. So after all, we're putting tampons in men's bathrooms now, for gender equity. So again, up is down and down is up and black is white. And this is ridiculous. And it's just bad science. So
this is the pro-science crowd too. Never forget.
Yes, of course.
All right, next one. Read the 9th Amendment.
Okay. So this is a reference to the privacy right that Justice Blackmun was sort of grabbing and pulling into the 14th Amendment and applying it to the state. So the privacy rights for things like Griswold versus Connecticut and the access to contraception, for example, or Obergefell versus Hodges and the privacy right to same-sex marriage that the justices discovered in 2015. This is a reference to that privacy right. Here's the thing. In the draft opinion, Alito very eloquently describes the fact that this is very different. It doesn't have to go to the issue of privacy. It is, again, as abortion, inherently different because it involves the taking of another human life. Even Justice Blackmun in 1973 said it's the taking of potential life, and Alito said it's the taking of human life. So 50 years apart, both justices agree abortion is different. Yes, the privacy right was the tag that Justice Blackmun in 73 used to create this right. That doesn't mean it's still good law because, as Alito wrote, this from the outset was absolutely the wrong constitutional interpretation. So,
well, I want to talk to design of the sign too.
Yeah.
They were kind of cool. I like the green, the pink.
They put a little
work into it. But then I don't really get at the bottom. It's just splatters.
Yeah. Is that? I almost thought it was like floral, but it's
it
not.
Looks floral, but I think it's random.
He also
abstract.
went to Michael's craft store, I think, because there's something that was attempted to be creative there. Oh, and there's a super cool uterus holding up a middle finger with a fallopian tube right behind it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's a creative sign.
All right, next one.
Millions of daughters, mothers, sisters, wives, aunts will die.
Okay.
We hear this argument all the time. Women will die.
We do. Of course we do. This reminds me of when Justice Sonia Sotomayor, during oral arguments in one of the vaccine mandate cases, talked about millions of children on ventilators because of COVID. And even the liberal press was going, what? That was a serious record scratch moment. This is millions of daughters, mothers, sisters, wives, aunts will die. That's so incredibly facetious. It's hard to even know where to begin to start taking that apart. It is actually safer to carry a child to term than it is to have an abortion. And the older a child gets gestationally, that risk of mortality and complication increases by 35%, which indicates to me that this person, number one, has not done their homework. And number two, if they are hell-bent on ending preborn life, and they're going to find a dangerous way to do it, there's something to be said for, again, providing these individuals with the science and the fact that thousands of American couples are waiting for healthy American babies. There are so many opportunities to avoid what Blackman called the detriment of motherhood because we are in a different era now in 2022 than we were in 1973. So, again, but this is typical of the left's histrionics, their hysteria, their pandering, because whip them all up, everybody's going to die.
But have you ever seen such like a pretty nice sign that says millions will die?
Yes, I almost feel like with, oh my gosh, the hearts and the fluorescent pink and the purple. And yet then you're saying millions will die and die in huge letters. I feel like it should look differently.
You can't see the girl holding the sign, but she was smiling. She had a big smile on her face too.
Oh, she was very chipper about her hysterical messaging.
Yes,
that's inaccurate.
America's freedoms are greater than any life.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So that's a real, another moral upside down right there. When you are willing to put your personal choice above the right of anyone to even exist, I would say we probably need to take this person to church because there might be some imbalances in beliefs and an understanding about the inherent value of every human being. My freedom to run a stoplight or my freedom to go to the drugstore and get a particular prescription is not greater than your right to exist in the first place. That's an incredibly morally problematic sign. So.
Well, and what are our rights? Our rights to
life.
Right. Right. That's exactly it.
America's freedom.
Yes.
Oh. And this one, too, very low production value.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they don't know what font they were going with. That greater than symbol is just a little too heavy.
They got excited about the word freedoms and then probably stayed up too late, like rage tweeting. And then we're like, oh, well, forget it. I'm just going to finish this off.
And this is also, too, a big pet peeve of mine when they do like the A with the little thing above it, like at the bottom. But then the top A doesn't have it.
Inconsistent fonting. Yeah. That's horrible. Yeah.
Just shows you're just looking for attention when you do that with the top A and when you don't do it everywhere else. Okay.
All right. Women's bodies are more regulated than guns. We've talked about this gun argument a little bit.
Wow, here it comes again, though. But boy, it's popular. It's sure real popular for the left.
I'll note that coat hanger at the top.
Yeah.
There's a coat
hanger.
Yes,
of course. Coat hanger with the line through it.
Yeah.
So this, to me, I find really interesting because I would really like to know how this individual believes that women's bodies are regulated. Because a constitutional right to abortion never existed, and the justices, it seems, are about to admit that. Exactly how are their bodies more regulated? Or let's go back and let's say it's 1972, before the constitutional right to abortion was discovered. How were their bodies regulated? You can get the medicine you want. You can seek the practitioner that you want. I mean, heck, now you can have voluntary double mastectomies and take a bunch of hormones and believe that you're a boy. So I don't see how women's bodies are regulated. And maybe that person lives in a state like New York or California or even in the District of Columbia where there are virtually no restrictions on abortion. And
you can't get a gun.
And you can't get a gun. So I guess this one is sort of locus specific, and it just depends on your geography. But women's bodies, as a rule, overall, are not regulated. Admitting constitutional error, overturning bad precedent, does not mean that your body is suddenly regulated. I don't get it.
So I have a really funny story about the coat hangers. Interns are moving into D.C. It's the beginning of the summer. Our intern was telling me that their roommate is a Capitol Hill intern. And their office received so many hangers in the mail that she brought them home, and they didn't have to go out and buy hangers for their dorm.
Ooh, there you
Wow.
go. So there you go. Resourcefulness
Wow.
right there.
Wow.
Right there.
Oh my
use what you got.
Yeah.
gosh.
So this is our final sign. My AP government students understand constitutional law better than the SCOTUS.
Okay. All right. First of all, I have a son who took AP government, and I gave him about a 5-minute primer on this, and he very quickly said, "Mom, they screwed up. They screwed up in 73." And I was like, "Yeah, son, that is it." In layman's terms, the 1973 Supreme Court screwed up, okay? And constitutional questions they're able to be overturned for two reasons, okay? Even if they've been around forever. First of all, I want to give you the Plessy versus Ferguson separate but equal rule, right? That was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. Think where we would be if it wasn't overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. Those justices were just plain wrong. They thought you could have separate but equal facilities, government programs based on race. It's patently unconstitutional, and the Brown Supreme Court recognized that. If we leave even bad decisions alone, and Justice Kavanaugh mentioned this in oral arguments, where would we be as a country if we hadn't gone back and said, listen, we admit our error. Is the precedent wrong? And do the factors for overturning it outweigh the factors for keeping it? And the answer to both of those in Roe is yes. So maybe your AP government students need a primer again in constitutional law, and I volunteer myself as tribute, so you can call me.
Yeah, what do you think it means that this teacher is standing in that crowd with that message?
Oh, well, first of all, I mean, don't get me started on the industrialized education complex, because I can talk about that forever, but it's very clear that the NEA's influence in public education right now is absolutely bloated. It is out of control. It does not surprise me that you've got a young teacher here picketing in, Washington, D.C. area saying, my AP government class understands that the Constitution gives us a right to abortion, when in fact she's coming in already with a predetermined perspective on what she thinks the kids should be taught. And also, I cannot wait until my kids are out of school and I don't have to have these heart attack conversations with them anymore. Yeah.
And look, too, if you look really closely, there is another "women will die" sign. But this is
Oh,
a little
yeah,
more ominous.
Way
yes.
in the back
A
there.
little more ominous.
Yeah.
More hysterics.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah, a little more ominous with the block red lettering.
With letters.
Real
yeah.
bold.
I think the real winner of this march really was Michael's.
Yes, I think it was.
Look at
Michael's pastor.
yeah, those are definitely some die-cut red letters.
I would definitely agree with you on that.
Well, Sarah, thank you. This has been super fun. Again, for anyone listening, you can, if you want to watch this whole segment, you can do so on YouTube. We have the pictures on our Instagram. Sarah, this has been super fun. We really
Thank
appreciate
you for having me, you guys.